we got our Stinger 35 in there running and idling. Let me show you guys something really cool. So we're gonna go over to our FrSky X20 Pro. There you can see we have engine RPM. So that's pretty cool. All right, now let's go back. Here's the other cool thing. I have a regular timer set up right there. So that's gonna be our run time for fuel, that type of thing. And I also set up an odometer. So the odometer is based off of a logic switch for engine RPM. Anytime I see engine RPM over 500 RPM, the odometer will run, and it'll keep total track of how much runtime I have on this engine. So we're getting her just kind of broken in and cycled right now, but we're soon made and ready. But I thought that's a pretty cool thing. So that RPM device, pretty handy. All right, let me show you what I did here with the engine mount and the servo mount. I am not putting the throttle servo there. I know I'm going to need nose weight. We do not have a big radial up front, the Sato 60, whatever, that big by heavy. So we're going to have to be creative to keep all of our gear as far forward as possible to prevent putting a lot of dead weight in there. So my buddy Donnie makes those laser cut servo mounts. If you're interested, comment below. I'll help you to get some of those things. But we mounted the servo in there just like that. That will leave enough room to take our fuel tank and to push that just about to the edge of that servo right there. So that way we have all of our stopper and everything else sticking out the front. So that's pretty good. I like the articulation. It's short. It's just 256 threaded rod, and since it's so short, I'm not worried about it bending with plastic clevises on each end. And obviously with plastic, we always use the little silicone squeezers, and as soon as we get everything set up, we'll make sure that we push those over the end to keep that in place. But otherwise, we're about ready to start plumbing in our fuel tank. Let's get going. All right, let's start making our fuel system, our clamps, putting this whole thing together. First thing I'm going to do is use a sharp razor knife, and we're going to go ahead and cut the Tygon using this, not a pair of diagonal cutters. Diagonal cutters will actually create splits in the end that will come back to haunt you later. I'm going to use, instead of the regular clunk that's unfiltered they give you, a ceramic Husqvarna clunk. My buddy Ronnie showed me those a long time ago, and I absolutely love them. If you want these clamps, right, and you could use safety wire, these. Sometimes I use one or the other, depends on the model. A pair of expanding hemostats. If you want more clamping pressure, cut them wider. So we're just going to work this thing open like that. We're going to push the Tygon in the inside of it. We're going to slide that up. Then we're going to take our hemostats out. Now we're going to take our clunk on the inside, and again, you can push this tubing on. I like to push it on as far as it'll let me go on those, and then I slide my little clamp right down. And guys, when you want to talk about, I'm pulling on it really hard, so nice and secure. Again, a little less, make them thinner. But otherwise, we're going to take this, we're going to get this thing installed, and one of these we're going to have to bend upwards, so that way that is our vent into the tank. One will be our fill, and then one will be our vent out. Once you take your clunk and you get that thing installed, obviously that's going to be on the one that runs out to the carburetor. One's fill, one's vent. We'll have to get all those marked out, but one of these we're going to have to take, and we're going to have to bend up into the top of the tank, so let's do that. Now we have our stopper. We have it marked vent, carburetor, and that is our fill. You're going to notice that I already have the tubing installed, clamps on each end. One of the things that's going to help you, the fill, what I like to do is I like to take another one of these and I will put that tubing in there with a second clunk. You can do another filtered one, or now you can use this on the fill. And what that will allow you to do, if you're using a second one of these, it would be filtered in and out, so numerous times. So if something was in there, it doesn't get sucked back into your can. But if you want to do this, that's fine. And that way on a tail dragger, the reason I like to do that is so that your fill line that you're also emptying from also sits down on the bottom of the tank, because the tanks will not sit level like this. They'll sit like this. And that way you can use that to suck that out. Now, when it comes time to slide this tubing over, go ahead on all of those and take yourself, you can use an awl or you can use something like this. They do sell furled fittings you can solder on there. I've always just done this. You use just a screwdriver, something that's somewhat round, and you start to just work that end like that in a circle. See the flare you've created? Now when you're using the tubing in that clamp, doesn't want to come off. So let's get this installed. The vent we have marked for the top, so this thing we will take now and flex up, and we're going to flare out all those other fittings. Now they want you to go ahead and install a stopper block right there. I have the servo there in the way, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure this stuff out and use my scissors. And I'm also still going to use a fuel tank holder strap, but at least this will hold the tank in place for me exactly where I want it. It should be right there. We have all of our lines marked. We know what everything is for our carb, our fill, our vent. Everything's in place. Let's get a strap around that and we can get this installed. There you can see we have our strap installed. It's Velcroed. Tank's not going to go anywhere. And your vent line, you want to make a loop. So you can make your loop right here, just like this. You can use 3D holders. I've done that in the past. And then the other option is that you cannot do that and just loop this up and around the engine firewall or motor box, whatever, and then have it come out the bottom. But for me, I'm just going to keep the loop right there, and that'll work just great. Let's get it in. All right, fuel system is in. We use that little nylon bolt there to hold the tray down. I have my fill run over to here, so that thing is going to go in some type of fueler valve somewhere in there. So for now, it's just mounted. You could see we have our carburetor line running to the carb right there, right around the servo, so it's nice and short. Right now our vent is running out of the top, and we'll have to do something yet for choke. But anyway, let's go ahead and get the spark plug in, and then we have this ignition module right here to get mounted. So I think I'm going to get this put in underneath. Let me get you guys right there. I'll show you what I'm going to do. So, nice part about working on this stand, take it, flip it, and just like that, we can now see the bottom. So let me take you guys over to here, get you set up. And we're just going to take some Velcro strapping, we'll run that through right there. That looks good. And as far as our ignition module goes, this thing I'm going to mount right here. If you wish to put some padding underneath it, if you're a guy that believes that it needs padding, that's fine, put padding under it. The thing that I am going to do If I can find where I put it. I am just going to use a little bit of this 3M dual lock. Not quite Velcro, but it still gives you some type of isolation, I guess. It's not hard mounted. Get off of there. So we're gonna put that stuff right there. Gonna take that, we'll wrap that up there, and we'll get this stuff nice and tight. So that's all fixed. Spark plug is the CM6 in this. We can get that thing in. That's probably no good anymore. Don't drop your spark plugs, ladies and gents. So spark plug going in, CM6. You can always look at the gap, make sure that that's good. Take this thing, we're gonna throw that in there, tighten it up. You don't have to kill it. And then we are going to, before we put this on here, we're going to get some dielectric grease to put around the boot, or you can put it around here. It's a optical isolator, so basically it prevents arcing going down through there if you should have any, but also it'll prevent that thing from sticking on there, and you'll be able to get it off later when you go to change that. So anyway, our 3 lines that are here, we're going to have the pickup sensor of the hull, the tack, and then this is going to be power. So we're going to have to go dig out one of our voltage regulators, our BECs, battery eliminator circuit, so we can control this ignition from our receiver, and this uses 7 to 14 volts. Let's go ahead and install all of these 3 mils. I'm just using a 3 mil and a washer, a little bit of blue Loctite just to drop, and let's get all of these put in. All right, one of the best ways I've found to prevent mufflers from falling off of engines is, before we put any fuel and oil to this thing, take regular can of brake clean. Gonna get some on the rag there. And we are not going to use the gaskets that come with it. We're gonna wipe that off. We're gonna wipe that off. We're gonna get that out of the way. And now we are going to take some of our red high temp gasket maker, and we are just going to put a very light coat. Why don't I use the other one? The one that comes with it, because what happens is that the gasket gets hard over time, expansion and contraction, and then the bolts come loose. There you can see that we have a thin layer of red RTV on there. Why don't we use the regular gasket? Because as it gets cycled a bunch of times, it gets stiff, and then it doesn't expand and contract at all, and then it leaves a gap, and that allows the bolts to come loose. So from here, all right, down in the inside of there, we're going to put a bunch of RTV, and a good amount. So we're going to get some of that on here, and everyone's like, oh, it'll be goopy. I want it goopy, and I'm using a lock washer. And the reason I want that really goopy in there is because I want all of that red RTV to push around on the inside and basically form just like a rubber cushion all the way down in there. So that one's in and through, and it's okay. I want it on the threads as well. I want that stuff. I don't use Loctite. Loctite has just never worked. Get a bunch of that stuff on the threads, completely okay. So we're going to get our next one there and there. It's got a bunch of that RTV in there. All of that stuff on the outside we can wipe off later. Again, some red RTV there on the threads. And if this doesn't work for you, that's fine. If you like different methods, I don't use Nordlock washers or any of the other stuff. This has worked just fine for me for a lot of years. And the big thing is that you let it sit. And you let it sit for a couple days before you fire it up. Just because you don't want any of that oil and fuel in there to mess up your bond that's on the inside between all those components. You want that stuff to almost become very rubbery, grippy like. Don't over tighten them and strip the threads. Just nice and snug. And there you go. So we can go ahead and take this and go ahead and wipe that off. All right, now we're gonna let that sit. We'll go ahead and put a little bit of this dielectric compound, just regular dielectric grease on the inside of that boot, like that. Now we can go ahead and clip this on. Looky, looky, Archway Cookie, here's something cool for you. All right, we want RPM data on our FrSky transmitter flying a Stinger engine because it's just cool, that's why. If you want to use it to help you tune, sure, but otherwise I just like having this data because you can set alarms and all kinds of things to it. So I like that. So here it is on a secondary screen for me. There we have revolutions per minute RPM. So what am I using? This is available from rclightsystems.com. I've used a lot of their projects in my Gator Rc builds and absolutely have had phenomenal success with them for a plethora of reasons. So number one, they have things like ESC telemetry converters. So if you have telemetry out of a certain plane that you need to get into a certain transmitter, you can go ahead. They have a wide variety of protocols for that. If you just wanted straight up RPM out of a RPM tax signal out of a ignition system, you can just use that. I chose to use this for a couple reasons. Number one, because you can see the green glowing LED means the ignition is armed. Now that ignition is off. So that is all set up on one switch for me. So not only do I have an ignition Ibec, which I've really loved Gator Rc's ignition Ibecs. I think they're really second to none. But in this case, I wanted to get RPM telemetry out of this engine. So I'm playing around with something a little different and wanted to give it a shot. So not only do I have all of the filtering options through here, it has selectable ignition voltages from 6 to 8 volts. It has basically configurable protocols to do S-Bus, Jetty X-Bus, X-Bus, Spectrum, what is that, SR, XL, we have S-Bus, S-Port, all of those types of things. There is just a plethora of protocols available for this thing, but I can get my RPM. It's got replaceable LEDs to it, my information coming into this, and then you can also have this set up as an output from here to minimize wiring to go up to a throttle servo as well. So this is a really cool setup. So I'm going to show you really briefly how I did this. Wiring, LED is just your LED. RPM is going to come out of this device and it's going to go up to this wire here off the ignition box that says tachometer on it. All right, so that runs to the ignition up front. This one on the transmitter, I have two wires that go back to the receiver. Okay, one is aux and the other one is receiver. So the one for aux, this one right now is running into what I have set up as channel 9. So aux is going to be my S-Bus wiring, and you could cut down on this. They told me if you go to F-Bus, I'm just leaving mine as S-Bus for now. I don't mind the extra wire. So that aux, I configured port 9 to S-Bus on my TDSR 10 FrSky receiver. So that's what that one's for. Then this one is going to go over to, I have port 10. This is your on and off switch. So this is the one that you configure to shut on and off. So how did I do that? So we come into here and we go into mixes, and basically I created a mix here. So it's a free mix. So if we go into that, what does that look like? Just so you guys know. So we'll go into edit. So I renamed it ignition kill, active condition is always on. Source is the switch that you want. So just move the switch. We're going to go down to output is going to be what channel are we outputting to, and that is going to be ignition kill, so that channel 10. So that's what that looks like right there. And then the other thing we had to set up, let me hop over to there. All right, now you're going to go into RF systems here. So we're going to click that. We're going to scroll until we find our receiver. So we're going to go into there. We're going to go up here to options. I'm sorry if I got a glare. I'm trying to talk you through it as well as show it to you. So from here, we're going to go ahead and scroll to the channel we were using. In this case was 10. And I set that up to say ignition kill. So that's what that channel was going to be used for. So I just renamed it there. And then pin 9, you can see as that's the one I set up for S port. So this is the same place that you would configure that to be from a regular channel to an S port. But pin 10 needs to be a PWM, a regular servo line. So that way it can turn this thing on and off with that switch like you can see here. So I'm gonna I have that all the way I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and wire that in. That should be good. We'll make that wiring nice and clean. We will have ignition. We will have the battery voltage we want. We will have an ignition cutoff, and more importantly, the RPM telemetry we want out of our Stinger engine that you can see up front. So let me show you here. So a lot of you guys want to know what wires go where. This wire coming off, all right, that one goes just right down to here into your ignition. You're going to have a 2-wire, which this is going to be the power feed in from that Ibec, and then you have one for your tack. So it should be pretty easy to figure out, but that's going to help to bring this bad boy to life. I can't wait. We're oh so close. And there you have it. That's a wrap of this section of the builder assembly of the Seagull's Model Gilmore Redline. If this model interests you, do me a favor, head on over to www.gator-rc.com. You could find this model there, and maybe if this isn't your cup of tea, you could check out the full line of other products they have from Top RC Model, obviously Seagull's Models, and Sebart, or many others, as they are a full one-stop hobby shop for all your engines, transmitters, radios, motors, servos, everything you can imagine you will find there. So, obviously, a link down in the description below, you'll find all of the listings there of all of the products that we are using on the inside of this build. I appreciate you guys watching and following along. Smash that thumbs up. It helps us a lot. Like, share, subscribe, all that happy jazz. And don't forget to smash that like button. Head on over to Facebook and check out the Just Plain Crazy as well as the Gator RC Facebook pages. As well as YouTube and Instagram and TikTok for just the Just Plain Crazy side of things. But that being said, I appreciate all of you guys watching. I will wish each one of you happy flights. Peace out.